This is Hollywood and CBS presenting Forecast Number 4. Herbert Marshall, directed by Alfred Hitchcock in the first program of a proposed new series entitled Suspense. Tonight's Forecast program, ladies and gentlemen, represents the ideal form of collaboration. Mr. Alfred Hitchcock, brilliant English director of such outstanding motion pictures as The 39 Steps, Rebecca, and Foreign Correspondent, was eager to create a very special type of radio drama, the suspense story. As narrator and star for his production, he thought at once of the distinguished actor with whom he had been associated in countless British film successes, Herbert Marshall. Mr. Marshall suggested that they dramatize a certain favorite story of his. And that story happened to be the very one Mr. Hitchcock had had in mind. Mrs. Belloc Lowndes' classic in Chills, The Lodger. The Lodger is a work of fiction which springs from recorded fact. A story which begins in the year 1888 in London. A London terrorized by the fifth in a succession of recent murders. It was believed that these deeds were the work of one person, a tall, gaunt figure in a black Inverness cape, carrying a small, narrow bag. That meager description, provided by a highly unnerved witness, was the sum total of all that was known of the murderer. It was enough, however, to keep alive and alert the interest of all London, of all those in fine quarters, and all those in small, grimy houses, as, for example, Ellen Bunting. Ellen was no different from all the other middle-aged housewives dwelling in the great city's squalid Whitechapel district. She knew all the known facts of the case. As Herbert Marshall will tell you, Ellen knew it was quite proper to refer to this wielder of the knife as
the Avenger. Of course, Ellen Bunting was far more concerned with her personal problems than with thoughts of the Avenger. Yet the case of that strange, elusive killer quite often forced all other matters from her mind. There was that mad, meaningless scheme he seemed to follow. All his victims, for example, had been women. All had been young, attractive, and, oddly enough, blonde. But Ellen could no more understand the motive for his brutal slashings than could the police. This night, she and her husband, Robert Bunting, sat before their fireplace reading the newspaper account of the latest murder. The Avenger had struck again. As Ellen expressed it, he might be anybody. He might be the fellow you pass on the street.
Standing next to you. It's a terrible thought.
Yes. If only the police had something to go on. It looks like that Avenger's just too quick for him.
Look, it says here that this girl he got last night was like all the others. Pretty, blonde, and, let's see, described by her friends as a very light-hearted girl. What a pity.
Did you ever stop to think who fits that to a T? In fact, fits all those girls?
Why,
my own Daisy.
Oh, that's a horrible thought. Well, maybe it's a good thing she's with her aunt, then, instead of here. London ain't a safe place for any girl right now.
Just the same, I can't help thinking how fine it'll be to have her back in.
Now, Bunting, you know that Daisy seems just as much my own daughter as she is yours. But I'm telling you, there's no sense even thinking about having her back right now. We just can't afford it.
Oh, I know that, Ellen. Only, well, maybe we could manage it some way.
How? Haven't I scrimped myself half crazy trying to keep us going? But you don't care about that, do you? No, your Daisy's more important to you than I am.
No, Ellen, that don't sound like you.
Oh, I can't help if it don't. What are we going to do? Tell me that.
We'll get along, dear. Something will turn up.
Oh, we haven't had a lodger for months. Nobody even comes to look at the room anymore.
Yes, but things will work out, Ellen.
Oh, they ain't never going to work out. Soon we won't even have a roof over our heads and... Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie. I didn't mean to take on so...
Oh, I know, dear, I know. It's all right.
Oh, I didn't think it. It's just that I've been so worried.
Well, don't you go worrying another second, old girl. Why, first thing you know, you won't be pretty anymore. You'll have your face all wrinkled
now,
and
I'll see here,
come on, now,
Bunting.
let's see a smile. Come on, just have one smile for me. Just
alone.
one smile like you used to, eh?
Talk with you.
Well, who do you suppose that could be?
Awful late for visitors. Bunting, do you think it could be somebody looking for rooms?
Well, it might be. You want me to go to the door?
No, I'll go. You just stay here.
Yes, all right. Now, be sure you get a good look at Louise before you let them in, dear.
Oh, I'm coming. Oh, I do hope it's... Yes, sir?
Is it not true that you let lodgings?
Yes, sir. Won't you come in, sir?
Thank you.
Could I take your cape, sir?
There's no need. Now, I'm looking for a quiet room. It must be quiet.
Oh, we have that, sir. Above all, our house is quiet. Your bag, sir. May I take it?
No, I'll hold it. You'll be so good as to show me the room, please.
Oh, yes, sir. It's right up these stairs, sir. This way.
Thank you.
You see, sir, there's just my husband and me here, and we're ever so quiet, and I'm sure you'll find this room to your liking, sir. Here we are. Now, I'll just light the gas. There.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
It is pleasant, isn't it, sir? And there's not many rooms with such pretty pictures, are there now? We've had them in the family for years, sir, and...
Pictures interest me very little. You see, what really impresses me about the room is the very simplicity of it, the bareness.
Yes, sir. It's not at all crowded, is it?
It will be quite suitable, Mrs.
Bunting's.
Mrs. Bunting. You see, I do a great deal of studying in my book here, the Holy Bible.
Yes, sir. Please, sir, let me help with your luggage.
No, don't touch it.
Oh, but I only wish to...
Oh, you only wish to help, of course. You must forgive me, Mrs. Bunting. It's just that I'm so very weary.
Of course, sir.
He bringeth them to their desired haven. Beautiful words, Mrs. Bunting.
Indeed they are, sir.
And now at last I have found my haven of rest.
Yes, sir. Then you'll be taking the room.
Let us see now. What are you going to charge me? With attendance, mind. I shall be staying in most of the time, and I shall be wanting meals.
Oh, we can see to that, sir.
Then does 30 shillings a week suit you?
30... Why, yes, sir. Yes, sir, that will be quite all right.
Good, and I shall pay you in advance. My name is Sleuth, Mrs. Bunting.
Mr. Sleuth.
Sleuth. Think of a hound, Mrs. Bunting, and you'll never forget my name. 23, 4, 30 shillings.
Thank you, sir.
And I think I should enjoy a little light supper now, Mrs. Bunting. Bread and butter, perhaps. Could you arrange that?
Well, certainly, sir. I'll do that now. And if you'd be requiring any beer or spirits...
Certainly not.
Oh, sir. What did I say?
I thought you understood me, Mrs. Bunting, and I had hoped that you and your husband were abstainers.
But we are, sir. We don't keep nothing about. I would have had to go out and...
Of course. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bunting. I fear I spoke sharply. I don't wish you to think me rude. After all, you've been so kind, considerate.
I hope I know a gentleman when I see one.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'll just hurry with your supper.
Ellen, did he take the room?
No, don't bother me now. I have to get him some supper.
What did you mean?
Come to the kitchen where he won't hear us.
He took it, Ellen?
Yes,
He took the room?
Yes, we're all right now. Look, 30 shillings. A week in advance.
Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful. And Ellen, do you see what this means?
Yes, you can have Daisy now.
Yes.
Here, Bunting, warm that teapot and put some tea leaves in it.
Righto. Yeah, do you know something, old girl? We're not going to worry too much about Daisy being in danger of that Avenger fella.
Whatever do you mean, Robbie?
Well, she's not a girl who takes a drink, you know.
What's that to do with it, please?
Oh, something I read in the paper while he was upstairs with the gentleman. They just found out that every one of the Avenger's victims had been drinking. They figure he must be some kind of a rabid abstainer.
What a peculiar chap. Now hurry, Bunting, please.
Yeah.
Two thoughts only governed Ellen's mind. The lodger's light supper and her own good fortune at having such a lodger. Mr. Sleuth was an eccentric sort, but then he was such a gentleman, so quiet, so very religiously inclined. She started up the staircase to Mr. Sleuth's room, her husband at her side.
It won't do no harm to be safe, though, once Daisy's back in London, eh? We'll see she stays closer in the house, Well, I'll be downstairs. Hurry up with his supper, old girl.
She has cast down many wounded from her. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Come in. And to know the wickedness of folly.
Why, Mr.
Yes? What is it?
Those pictures. Those pretty girls. You've turned all their faces to the wall.
And that maneuver, that strange action, was the beginning of Ellen's concern. Soon there came to her a recollection of the black Inverness cape, the small, narrow bag, the urgent matter of alcoholic drink. And these details began to shape themselves into a pattern which grew more disturbing with each passing hour. The day following, the lodger did not leave the upstairs room once, nor did he leave the next day. And the oddness of this took its place in the pattern. Then, too, the approaching arrival of Daisy, her stepdaughter, added to her concern. On the second night, her sleep was restless with vague, horrifying images. And so, when she heard the first stealthy footsteps outside her bedroom, she was instantly awake. Tensely, she followed those steps down the stairs, down the hallway. She heard the front door open, and then click shut. Utter stillness fell upon the house. And outside, the streets were so silent she could hear distinctly the clock from a church tower a mile away tolled the hour. In her troubled frenzy, she pictured a lone figure plodding through the deep fog, moving quietly, stealthily, stalking, searching, finding. When, soon after she heard the lodger return, she sought to quiet the horrible dread which had possessed her. She assured herself that Daisy's arrival that day was no cause for alarm. Now she reasoned, how could there be anything really evil about so religious a gentleman as Mr. Sleuth? But for her there was no more sleep, merely a tormented state of half-consciousness, a state which suddenly dropped from her shortly after daybreak. Horrible murder. That was the piercing scream of a newsboy far down the street.
The Avenger strikes during night!
Ellen Bunting heard the boy cry out the Avenger's latest stroke, made during the night. Ellen's first glimpse that morning of the grave-faced lodger brought the sleepless night's warm terror full to the surface. But on the next instant, she saw the pitiable, helpless weariness in his eyes, and curiously, the terror began to pass. She found that she was hoping desperately that her fears were unfounded. Earlier, she had determined to tell Bunting of the awful convictions in her mind. Now, however, she felt she must be certain before she spoke to a soul. She knew there was one thing she must examine. That was the lodger's single piece of luggage. She'd thought of it often. What could it hold? Not much in the way of clothing, surely. It was too small, too narrow. It was more like a case. A case for a knife. It was along toward noon that Ellen found her opportunity to search the lodger's room. Soon after Bunting left to meet Daisy, Mr. Sleuth himself walked from the house. Ellen watched the tall, thin figure in the black Inverness cape disappear down the street, and then she rushed upstairs, into the room. Quickly, she moved to the closet. It was no different from what it had always been, utterly empty. She found nothing under the bed. She went then to the chest of drawers against the wall. She opened the top drawer and found inside nothing but a frayed shirt, 2 handkerchiefs. The next drawer, underclothes, socks. The next empty. There remained then only one possible place for the small, narrow bag, the bottom drawer, and it was locked. Tugging at the drawer, she heard suddenly the opening of the front door downstairs. Panic-stricken, she rushed out of the room and down the hall to the head of the stairs.
Upstairs, Ellen? Ellen, Daisy's here.
Oh, Mother Ellen, it's so good to see you. And whatever's the matter?
Yes, you've gone quite white.
Oh, well, I'm all right. I wasn't expecting you so soon.
Oh, you don't know how fine it is to be back, Mother Ellen. Oh, the country's all right in its way, but there's nothing like London now, is there?
No, there isn't.
But as long as that Avenger's about, I can see we're going to have to do something about these blonde locks, eh, Ellen?
Oh, don't worry about that. I'll dye them, maybe, or just pin them under my hat.
Daisy, I might as well get you settled.
Oh, now, Father, isn't that just like her? She's straight to the point, and no fuss.
Well, I'll bet a sixpence you'll have a dust cloth in your hand before you've got your coat off.
Mr. Sleuth.
Mrs. Bunting, I see my door is open.
Oh, we were just leaving, so we...
Does this mean that all of you have been in my room?
Oh, not at all, sir.
What must I do? Keep it locked?
But you see, sir, I was just tidying up a bit, and Mr. Bunting, he brought his daughter up, sir. She just arrived. This is Daisy, sir.
Pleased to meet you, sir.
She's been away for quite a long while, you see, Mr. Sleuth, and that's why we're a bit excited, you might
Yes,
think.
you must have been surprised when you came in, hearing us laughing and carrying on that way.
Yes, I must say I was. However, Miss Daisy, there are all types of joy, are there not?
Yes, I'm sure there are.
The despicable evil joy of the abandoned and the divine happiness of the blessed. A vast difference, that. You do understand me, don't you?
Why, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Sleuth.
I devoutly hope so, Miss Daisy. Nowadays, there are so very few young women like yourself who do. In fact, I all but despaired ever of finding one.
If you'll excuse us now, sir, we'll be getting Daisy's things put away.
Of course, Mrs. Bunting, and I must be getting to my room. Believe me, Miss Daisy, it's been a revelation to meet you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I'm sure we shall have much to discuss.
He's a queer one, all right. But such a gentleman, isn't he?
At that moment, Ellen had been determined to pour out her terrible knowledge, and then the moment passed by. She told herself that perhaps the past few days had been nothing more than a grim illusion, a tormenting play of imagination. She would wait then until she had attended the coroner's inquest into the last Avenger murder. There, perhaps, she could hear evidence to disprove all her fears, to assure her there was no earthly harm in Daisy being so near the lodger. This was her gravest concern now, for on the next day, Mr. Sleuth made it a point to see the girl more than once. And fearfully, Ellen saw that Daisy welcomed his visits. As Ellen was preparing to step out to the inquest, she heard once more the voices of her stepdaughter and the lodger coming to her through the kitchen door. She hesitated before entering. Tense. Strangely apprehensive.
I do believe, Mr. Sleuth, I've never known a gentleman with such funny ideas. Oh, Mother Ellen, you should hear what Mr. Sleuth was just saying.
Perhaps, Daisy, you would excuse yourself and...
He thinks people, and especially girls, should spend all their time praying.
I sought to explain, Mrs. Bunting, that all women are placed on this earth filled with evil. They therefore must struggle constantly to find the paths of righteousness.
Why, Mr. Sleuth, you mean a girl's not to enjoy life at all? Not to have fun?
Frivolity, my child, is the devil's breeding ground. And all his implements are there. Temptation, pleasure, wine.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, there's nothing I like better than a glass of wine, and I'm not...
You drink.
She didn't know what she was saying, Mr. Sleuth. Just a child, and Daisy, you'd better go now.
But I didn't say nothing wrong. What's the harm in a glass of wine?
She lieth in wait as for a prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men.
Well, I don't know what you mean. I never heard such nonsense.
You call Holy Scripture nonsense? So what I prayed against is true. You are beyond salvation.
That's not so. I'm a good girl, I am, and I won't have you saying that.
Daisy, go into the front room.
It's quite all right, Mrs. Bunting. I must be going upstairs anyway. I'm used to being misunderstood, you know. People never realize that my efforts are simply for the greater good of humanity.
Of course, sir.
And that the power on high will direct my hand toward the expulsion of all evil.
Daisy, listen to me.
Yes?
I've got to tell you about...
About what, Mother Ellen?
Nothing. I've got to go out for a while now. I'll be back.
The moment to reveal the secret horror had come again and passed. Ellen's sudden recollection of Mr. Sleuth as he stood in the doorway had overwhelmed her. She must give him this last chance, this last frantic search for disproving evidence, this trip to the inquest. If that chance should fail, then she would tell Bunting or the police. So with the knowledge that Bunting was left in the house to look after Daisy, she boarded the underground train bound for the coroner's court. But as the train pulled away from the station, a new torture came to her, began to mount in her mind. It was the sudden realization that provided Sleuth was the murderer, she was equally responsible for his crimes. She had been giving him protection. If anything should happen to Daisy, she would be equally Guilty.
Guilty.
Fully as guilty as the Avenger. Ellen, seated at the rear of the small but crowded inquest room, listened to each of the witnesses as they were called. And from one of them she found the first hope she had known for many days. This witness lived next to the alley in which the Avenger had committed his crime that night. She had seen him from her window, and the man she described in no way resembled Ellen's lodger. But in another moment, Ellen's hope was swept away. It was pointed out that the fog had been so heavy that night that the witness could not possibly have seen the murderer from her window. She left the stand, replaced by a Mr. Cannot. This elderly gentleman was certain that he had not only seen, but talked with the Avenger. It was in Regent's Park, he testified, only a few moments before...
A few moments before the murder, Mr. Coroner, when I saw him. He was quite a tall man, very gaunt-looking, and carrying a handbag.
A handbag, you say?
Yes, a small, narrow one. Just such a bag, I might add, as might contain a knife.
As Ellen heard these words, the tension which had been mounting up within her became almost unbearable. Rigid with horror, she gripped the arms of her chair. She heard the coroner...
I shall have to ask for more order in the court. And now, Mr. Cannot, I understand you heard this man speak.
Oh, yes, he had a rather high, hesitating voice. An educated man, I would judge, but quite mad.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as he emerged from the fog, he was talking aloud to himself. Believe me, sir, he was reciting scriptures from the Bible.
Scriptures from the Bible. Horrified, Ellen rose from her seat, only half hearing the confusion about her.
Are you asking us to believe? I would say, Mr. Cannot, that the man we're looking for would be least of all a religious man.
And that's where you're in error, Mr. Coroner. The religious note is the very key to the case.
Very interesting. That'll be all, Mr. Cannot.
Just a moment, sir. Don't you understand? The man you're after must be a religious maniac. That's the only explanation possible.
You will please stand down.
The court was dismissing the very truth. Ellen knew that now. She could no longer keep silent. Her hands shot forth, and she screamed.
I want to say...
Ellen Bunting, on the verge of speaking, had fainted. And then, when she was revived a few moments later, she said nothing. Her brain was in too great a turmoil, her nerves too shocked. Like one in a dream, she allowed herself to be led from the courtroom. The voices of spectators were only vague sounds to her.
I thought she was going to say something.
Yes, it was hysterics, eh?
Yeah, that bit about the knife.
Yeah, the knife.
The knife.
The knife. As Ellen Bunting proceeded homeward, the remarks from the spectators remained in her mind. She heard them over and over.
See? Yeah, that bit about the knife. And just such a bag as might contain a knife.
We'll see she stays close in the house, eh? No harm in being safe.
Direct my hand toward the expulsion of all evil. Expulsion of all evil.
What's the harm in a glass of wine? I didn't say nothing wrong.
As Ellen neared her neighborhood, her dread increased. With each moving footstep, the grip of terror grew tighter about her. She moved faster. If only she were in time. She was 2 streets away from the house. Then one. Then she saw Bunting. Sharply, like the thrust of a knife, she realized what this meant. Daisy was left alone with the lodger.
Bunting!
Yes, Ellen? What is it?
Oh, Bunting, tell me, Bunting. Where's Daisy? Where is she? I say, where?
Why, at home.
Oh, listen to me. Try to understand. Sleuth is the Avenger.
What are you saying?
Our lodger. He's the Avenger, Bunting. Oh, but there's no time for that. Daisy's in danger. Hurry.
Yes. Daisy! Daisy!
Here we are, Bunting. Here we are.
Daisy!
Oh,
Daisy!
Daisy, where are you? I'll look in the kitchen, Bunting. You try the sitting room. Daisy!
Daisy!
Where are you, Daisy?
Answer me, Daisy!
Oh,
Try the bedroom.
she's not here. What about the dining room?
Look, she's not there. She's not downstairs.
Then there's just his room. Go on. Open the door.
Say, cut. What's the idea, Hitch? I have a few more lines to do.
As Mr. Marshall, the narrator, you have. Not as Mr. Sleuth, the lodger.
Hitch, you can't stop the play right here. It isn't fair, you know.
Why isn't it, Bart? What more is there to say?
But, Mr. Hitchcock, won't people want to know what Bunting and me found in the room?
All right, Ellen. What precisely did you find?
Well, nothing, sir.
There. You see? Nothing. No lodger, no Bible. And that locked dresser drawer. What about that?
We unlocked it, sir.
And what was in it?
Nothing, sir.
You are certain, Mrs. Bunting?
Oh, you gave me quite a turn, Mr. Mr. Marshall. Yes, sir, I'm sure, sir. There was nothing.
Well, begging your pardon, Mr. Hitchcock, but don't you think we'd better just mention about Daisy?
I don't know, Bunting. What do you think we ought to say?
Oh, just that the reason she wasn't in the house when Ellen and me got there was, well, she'd gone out for a walk, that's all.
Did she enjoy it?
Oh, very much, sir. Made it to King's Cross and back in just under an hour, sir.
Splendid time, Bunting. Well, there you are, Bart. There's the story.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Hitchcock. You can't do that. That's not the story.
Of course it's not. Now, look here, Hitch. Here's the fellow who composed and conducted all our music, Wilbur Hatch. He wants to know about this, too. Everybody does.
All right, Bart. What is it they want to know?
What became of Mr. Sleuth?
Oh, him. Why, he left that afternoon. They never saw him again. And now I think we ought to say something about the Columbia forecast
Mr. Hitchcock,
so far.
sir, will you please...
Stop him, Mr. Marshall.
Hitch, listen to me.
Yes? What is it?
They want to know when the Avenger finally was caught.
Oh, well, let me ask you something, Bart. Are you acquainted with Loretta Young?
Yes, what's that got to do with it?
Well, in next week's Columbia preview series, Miss Young will take the starring role in the drama of an American Red Cross nurse. That's good news, isn't it?
Oh, that's great. But now listen, Hitch, you've just got to tell that audience exactly when and how Mr. Sleuth was caught.
Caught? Why on earth should he be caught?
Why? Well, he was the Avenger, wasn't he?
Was he?
Your guess, gentle listener, is as good as ours. Even Mrs. Bella Glounds, who wrote the novel, isn't entirely sure. For his masterful direction, our thanks to Alfred Hitchcock, whose latest pictures are David O. Selznick's Rebecca and Walter Wanger's Foreign Correspondent. For his superb characterization of Mr. Sleuth, our thanks to Herbert Marshall. And our thanks to the outstanding British character actor who tonight portrayed the role of Bunting, Edmund Gwen. If you liked tonight's program and want to hear more in the same highly original Hitchcock vein, radio versions of The Lady Vanishes and The 39 Steps, for example, write to CBS and tell us so. Your interest will help bring Suspense to the air as a weekly feature. Forecast next week presents from Hollywood, Loretta Young in Angel, first of a proposed series based on the adventures and the romance of a typical Red Cross nurse. From New York, a new sort of comedy show, Ed Gardner as Archie in Duffy's Tavern, with Gertrude Neeson, Colonel Stoopnagle, Larry Adler, and John Kirby's orchestra. Don't miss Forecast at this hour next week. Thomas Freebanson speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
And now, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense. In a moment, Act One of Devilstone, starring Christopher Carey and Neil Fitzgerald, and written especially for Suspense by Jonathan Bundy. This portion of Suspense is brought to you by the makers of Parliament cigarettes.
Listen, more and more people are smoking to this tune every day.
Parliament gives you extra large, and Parliament gives you extra Extra margin, the filter's recessed and made to stay neat and clean. Quarter inch away, Parliament gives you extra margin. Parliament gives you extra margin. You're smoking neat, you're smoking clean with Parliament today.
My name is Martin, Timothy Martin. I live here in Dublin, and very nicely too, thanks to a considerable inheritance and sale of the family estate in County Kilkenny, which brought a very good price. I have a comfortable cottage, a faithful manservant by the name of Evetts, and everything else I need to live an easy, contented life, and without the need of applying myself to any sort of labor. Even my financial matters are no bother to me. They're handled by a penny-pinching old solicitor by the name of Ian Carney. And mine was a contented life. Until, that is. Until a long-forgotten uncle died and left me some property he'd owned but never lived on up in County Fermanagh near Inniskillen. A place known as Devilstone. And then... But let me digress for a moment. I should say, let me seem to digress for a moment. And remember this, please. For it may have much to do with the strange, terrifying tale I'm about to tell you. Deep under St. Michael's Church, here in Dublin, is a crypt. It possesses most amazing properties. In it lie scores of bodies in a state of perfect preservation, albeit they are hundreds of years old. The old ones used to say it's due to some wondrous form of black magic. But modern science, modern chemistry, has exploded that ancient belief, has shown that certain gases generated by the unusual composition of the dark, dank earth in which the crypt is located, those gases have produced this amazing phenomenon. Very well. Now, a few days ago, I called Mr. Carney, my solicitor, on the telephone.
I've been hoping you'd call me, Timothy. I wish to speak with you about that house and property in County Fermanagh that your uncle left you.
Well, I've certainly no desire to move away from Dublin, Mr. Carney, so I've decided to rent out the old place.
Rent it out?
And why not, sir?
You really think you can?
Well, I'm quite certain I can.
I doubt it.
Well, as a matter of fact, an American couple by the name of Stoker left here only yesterday for a look at it.
I see.
I expect they'll be back here a moment now to agree to lease it for the summer.
Timothy, you showed them the pictures and description of the place?
Yesterday morning. They were so intrigued by them, they were all for signing a lease then and there.
You'd better to have taken their money and let them do it, my boy.
Oh?
Aye.
I'm sure I don't see why. Well, surely they're entitled to look at the place over before they take it. After all, Mr. Carney, never having been there myself, there wasn't too much I could tell them about Devilstone.
Exactly as it should be, Timothy.
Well, I'm afraid I don't understand you, sir.
I mean that now, my boy. You will never rent it to them, nor to anyone else who goes there.
Why not? Now, why'd you say that, Mr. Carney? Well?
You don't know?
Well, of course I don't know.
Then perhaps your tenants, I should say erstwhile prospective tenants, will tell you, if you ever see them again.
Now, what do you mean by... Oh, excuse me a moment, Mr. Carney. Yes, what is it, Evetts?
I beg your pardon, sir, but there's a Mr. Stoker here to see you.
Stoker?
Yes, sir. And if I may say so, he appears to be quite excited about something, rather angry.
Hello?
Shall I tell him you're busy and suggest he see you another time?
Timothy?
Yes? No, Evetts. Have him come in, please.
Very good, sir.
Hello, Timothy.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Carney, but I've someone here to see me.
No, about Devilstone, Timothy.
I think I'd better call you back.
Very well, if you like. But there is something about Devilstone, its history, that you might not be cognizant of.
All right, well, I'll get back to you shortly.
Timothy!
Goodbye, sir.
Well, at least you didn't try to skip out on me.
Mr. Stoker, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Oh, it is, eh?
Did you and your wife get over to look at Devilstone as you'd planned?
We certainly did. And by heaven, Martin, if this is your idea of some practical joke...
My what?
Sending me alone to that ungodly place would have been bad enough. But my wife... Martin, you ought to be horsewhipped.
No, wait, please.
I'll have you know that as a result of your having let her go there, you and your twisted sense of humor...
What?
What is the matter with you, anyway? The poor woman nearly went out of her mind.
Mr. Stoker,
She still hasn't recovered from it. Sure, I got her back to Dublin all right. But the doctor has ordered her to bed. Had to give her strong sedatives. Now, I warn you, young man, if she doesn't recover completely...
Now, just a minute, Mr. Stoker.
Oh, don't bother, Martin. The less you say, the less I have to see of you from here on out, the better. Here are the keys to that place.
Now, look here, Mr.
Goodbye, Martin. If I ever see you again, it will be in a court of law.
Believe me, Mr. Stoker, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you so upset about?
Oh, you don't, eh?
Do you mean to say there's something wrong with Devilstone?
And do you mean to say that you, the owner of it, don't know?
You don't know what, sir?
You don't know that ungodly place is haunted?
What?
You heard me. Haunted!
Could I possibly have heard right, sir? Haunted? Was that what he said, Mr. Martin? Haunted?
Yes, that's what he said.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. Oh, I beg your pardon, sir. But really, it's too amusing.
Perfectly all right, Everett. You go right ahead and laugh, and I'll join you. Well, that's about as an absurd excuse I've ever heard.
Excuse me, sir. You don't think he meant it?
But the Devilstone is haunted? How could he? Haunted houses went out of fashion 100 years ago. No, Everett, it was simply a silly excuse for not leasing the place. Well, now that he and his wife have had a look at it. But what an excuse. Does he think that we Irish are nothing but a lot of stupid, superstitious idiots?
Oh, he's right, sir.
What?
I mean, of course not, sir.
Well, anyhow, it's completely ridiculous. So we'll simply forget it. Forget about the Stokers. Place an advertisement in the papers and find ourselves some other tenants.
Yes, sir.
Maybe we'd best reduce the rate on it a bit. Perhaps that's what scared them off.
No, that could be, sir.
Or who knows? And perhaps Devilstone isn't in as good condition as we've been led to believe. But can you imagine anyone coming up with an excuse so patently absurd, so completely asinine, and so utterly foolish, and expecting us to believe him, to take him seriously?
Yes? What is it, sir?
Everett, the truth now.
Yes?
Do you believe? Do you think? Possibly. Oh, no. No, of course not. It couldn't be. And yet, could that have been what Mr. Carney was talking about, or at least implying?
Mr. Carney, the solicitor?
Yes.
But Mr. Carney seems to be a man of good sense.
He was so definite about it, though. When he told me I should have let them do what they wanted after they saw the pictures, sign a lease immediately.
Before they even saw Devilstone?
Yes. They would have, you know. They would have signed and paid a couple of months' rent, and Mr. Carney said I was wrong in not letting them do it, in not getting what I could, and immediately.
Would it have been completely ethical now?
You mean if something is wrong with the place?
But haunted, sir.
No, of course not. Ridiculous.
Oh, of course.
And yet, well, there's one way to find out.
Yes. Shall I put in a call to Mr. Carney?
No. By doing that, I'd be admitting that I might believe in such ridiculous possibility. No, Everett. You and I would drive up to Devilstone and we'll investigate ourselves.
Capital, sir. A splendid idea.
You like it, eh?
Well, never having seen the place, either of us, and after Mr. Stoker's reaction to it, it might be quite exciting, sir.
Let's see now. If we leave right away, we should be able to reach Devilstone by nightfall.
Yes, sir.
So fetch the car and a couple of flashlights, too.
Very good, sir.
And perhaps I'd better take along a pistol, just in case. And of course...
What, sir?
Well, to conduct our investigation in the ghostly place and style, we'll take along one of the dogs with us. Say, Red Kim of Heatherscote.
An excellent idea, sir.
Now, let's get underway.
Yes, sir.
Well, Everett, if the man at the petrol station told us right, the rambling old mansion you now see before you is Devilstone.
Yes. I see.
Now, what kind of a reaction is that?
Not a gloomy old place, if I may say so, sir.
Now, don't you start conjuring up some ghosts.
Even Kim apparently finds nothing particularly friendly about it.
Now, look, Everett. If you're going to become superstitious about Devilstone...
Oh, no, sir.
Come along, we'll have a look at it. Come along, Kim. Come on, boy. Now, let me see if I can unlock this door.
Yes, sir, here. I'll hold the flash on it for you.
Good. I believe this is the key. Well, the door is already ajar.
Oh, yes, sir. So I see.
Well, come along, you two. Come on, kid.
He's protesting rather vehemently, sir.
We'll just get him inside and we'll close the door.
Yes, sir.
Kim! What the devil's the matter with you? Oh, come now, boy. Are you a dog or a mouse?
He most certainly is frightened of something, sir.
Yes. He doesn't look like a ghost hunter crouched down there in the corner that way.
And if I remember the pictures correctly, this door here should lead to a small, enclosed court, sir. And my word.
It's just another night bird, Everts. Don't let it bother you. Now, do you mind telling me why did you do that?
I beg your pardon.
What? Why, you're still over there at the door. And yet, I distinctly felt something or someone bump against my shoulder.
And I thought someone walked on past me. Look here, Mr. Martin.
Yes? What is it?
In the mud, out there in the court. Shine your light on it, sir, where mine is.
Why, yes. Footprints. Big ones. And fresh.
And do you see? More of them are being made even as we look at them.
No.
And yet there's no one there to make them.
Impossible.
I know, sir.
But you're right, Evans. You're right. Back inside now, and quickly.
Yes, sir.
Now, whatever is making those footsteps can't follow us.
It does feel a bit safer in here.
No wonder Kim is frightened. With things like that going on. But why? And how?
Do you suppose, sir, that one of the old lamps could be lighted?
Well, if they have any oil in them. And it shouldn't take us long to find out if they... Oh, now, wait a minute. Now, what are we acting this way for? It's trickery, that's all it is. It's trickery.
But by whom, sir? And why?
Well, that is something we shall have to find out. Now, where is Kim? Oh, there he is, still in the corner.
Sick with fright. Do you suppose, sir?
No, nonsense. Whoever it was that scared Stoker and his wife out of here is trying to scare us now. And I mean to find him out.
But the dog, sir. And if it's true about them and that there is a ghost...
Nonsense. No. We'll just look about here. Where? Now what's the matter?
That door. At the other end.
What?
Behind you. It's opening by itself into a small room beyond.
Good. Then we shall start our investigation in that room. Well, are you coming?
Yes, sir.
Oh, clumsy. Now you dropped your flashlight.
But I didn't, sir. I didn't. It was knocked out in my hand.
It what?
Honest it was, sir. I swear it, sir.
Now, Everts, don't be silly. Go on back in there and get it.
I really rather not, sir, if you don't mind. Oh, the door. It's closed by itself. And now we're locked in.
Oh, we are, eh? Who did this? Who closed this door? Who's there? Who's there, I say?
The same one.
What?
The same thing.
What are you talking about?
The same thing that struck your shoulder, that made the footprints in the mud, and that frightened poor Kim so badly.
And frightened you, too. Well, I say it's trickery. Trickery. It has to be. Who's doing this? Answer me. Answer me.
Your death begun.
What?
Your death begun.
Yes. Yes. I guess we'd better.
Yes, sir.
No. Not a bit of it.
Please, sir. Please, in the name of heaven, sir.
No. We're going to stay right here, Evetts, until we find out.
Yes. Begun.
No. Not until we learn just what's going on and... Where's that voice coming from?
I've tried to warn you.
Oh, please, sir.
They've tried to scare us, that's all. Tried to scare us.
Yes.
Yes.
So that you'd leave this place.
Why?
Because if you do not, you will suffer the same fate as the dog.
Kim? Fate? What are you talking about?
Look, sir. The door is opening.
Yes, look. In the light of the flash that was dropped in there.
Kim! Evetts. Kim is dead.
Then, Mr. Martin... Oh, please, sir, I beg of you.
Who did this? Who did this? Show yourself.
Yes. I will show myself. Look.
What? Oh, look, sir. Out of thin air.
Yes. I see him.
Mr. Martin.
Yes. All right. We'll leave. Come along, Evetts. Come on. Yes, Mr. Carney. I thought at first it was trickery or perhaps some kind of joint hallucination by Evetts and myself, induced perhaps by the gloomy atmosphere of the old house and whatever it was that Stoker had said about his wife and her being so terrified.
No, my boy.
But when it actually happened, that he actually appeared there before us out of thin air, this misty, tenuous, impalpable figure, and then when we found there wasn't so much as a little mark on Kim, the dog, who up to that moment had been as healthy as I. But why didn't you tell me about whatever it is in that inhabits that place when I talked to you on the phone?
I tried to, Timothy, but you cut me off. And after all, I'd known about it only as a legend from hearsay.
And he was a huge man and powerful, this ghost.
Yes, I should say it was Jason O'Flynn, your ancestor, who built the place for his wife. It was to have been her castle.
Was?
Yes. But the first day she sought to enter into it, she fell, tripped upon the threshold, she struck her head, and she never regained consciousness.
I see.
The doctor was summoned, did all he could for her, there in a smaller room off the main salon.
Yes.
But she died that night. And then Jason O'Flynn swore by the book that no one would live in that house but he, until his body turned to dust. He walked out of that little room then, and was never seen again. And ever since that time... But now you know the rest.
Wait.
Yes?
Until his body turns to dust.
His own words.
And he wasn't seen to leave.
No. What are you thinking of, Timothy?
I'm going back there, Mr. Carney, tomorrow in daylight. I just don't get it.
I certainly found no signs of hollow walls or hidden panels on the floors above, sir.
And yet, Evetts, somewhere close to that small room.
Don't you think it's best we simply leave the place and...
No. No one but he.
What?
Until his body turned to dust.
What, sir?
And although there must have been other people about, he wasn't seen to leave. And to me, Evetts, that means only one thing. Somewhere in this house lies the key to this mystery.
But we've been here most of the day, sir, and we've found nothing. And it's getting on towards dusk.
I know. But until I find some...
Oh, sorry, sir. Let me help you. The old rug was so badly wrinkled, it's no wonder you tripped.
Wait. Evetts. Listen.
Very, very hollow floor, I should say.
Here. Help me fold this rug back.
Yes, sir.
Here now. And look. A sort of trapdoor. And fitted in the floor so tightly.
Yes.
And this, it looks like a seal around the edge.
Why, yes, sir. And a heavy lifting ring.
Well, then give me a hand. We'll see if we can raise it. Now.
Oh, it's very tight, sir.
Yes. But the seal is giving way a little. Put everything you have into it now. Good. We made it.
Must be fetid horrid odor coming up out of that place.
Yes. Yes, Evetts. Like that in the caves, the catacombs under St. Michael's.
You mean where all the bodies and...
Yes. Quickly now. The flashlight. Give it to me.
Here, sir.
Now, look down there on the earthen floor below. Do you see? The wrists are cut. He killed himself.
No, it's he. It's the ghost that we saw.
Yes, Evetts. The body of Jason O'Flynn. And so perfectly preserved as though he died only moments ago.
Oh, it's horrid.
Until his body turned to dust, he said.
So we know now that we've found it. So please, sir, let's leave this place.
Wait, Evetts. Wait. Do you see? Now the fresh air has reached it.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes. The color is leaving the cheeks. The pallor of death is taking its place. And yes, now, at long last, the body will turn to dust. No longer will Jason O'Flynn walk the night. Requiescat in pace.
Suspense. You've been listening to Devilstone, starring Christopher Carey and Neil Fitzgerald, and written especially for Suspense by Jonathan Bundy. Suspense is produced and directed by Fred Hendrickson. Heard in tonight's story were Gilbert Mack, Walter Grisey, Reynold Osborne, and Frank Milano. Music supervision by Ethel Huber. Sound patterns by Walter Otto. Technical direction by Fred Cusick. Associate Director, Bernie Seabrooks. This is Stuart Metz speaking. Every weekday evening, Chris Schenkel is anchorman for a globe-girdling roundup of first-hand reports on sports activities everywhere. Make this your address for worldwide sports every weeknight. He who laughs oftenest hears Arthur Godfrey Time weekdays on the CBS Radio Network.